Before I taught, much like everyone teaches, or what I think everyone teaches like, you have your textbooks, you bring them in, you have your videos, you bring them in, you're working with your class, you have Blackboard where you post all your information and use it more as a course management, I guess, type of tool where it's a great tool for being able to post all the information on it and be able to disseminate it to students without having to worry about it weekly and to be able to bring new information in. But it doesn't provide a real mechanism for getting into the spirit of the course, or it doesn't provide as much of a mechanism for getting into the spirit of the course for the course that I teach on human behavior. And that was what I was really seeking. I was seeking something that really helped people to get into the understanding of human behavior. Human behavior to me is a very complex, dynamic, very exciting type of interplay with sometimes with the adult and child, sometimes adult and adult. It's relational. And so how to provide them another mechanism for trying to understand that. It's, to me, a very challenging course to teach because to understand human behavior is very challenging, it's very complex. It requires a model that talks about the various interactions of development, of the environment, of the brain, of neurophysiology, of culture. And so how do you bring all of those different trends together and help them to understand, and all those factors together, and help them understand how they complexly come together, and then also understand how the movement through life is really dynamic and exciting in its understanding. And so I really wanted to create something that really helped them as they moved into the course to get that sense. I thought using a web page, by being able to provide some breadth and depth to the understanding of human development is in some ways replicates human behavior. If you think about the web page, you go into it and it's so sophisticated now, it's so complex, and yet it's so simple. You can go into one page, you can look at it, and it's very simple, and yet at the same time you can go extremely deep into it and understand it in all its complexity. You can understand it in depth or in breadth. And so in some ways that was my intent with the course, was that I wanted to help them to understand, to get some sense of the breadth of this developmental stage. So as they went into infancy, what does infancy mean? When they're thinking about an infant, well, obviously there's going to be an infant and parents, but there's going to be more than that. There's going to be more than an environment. So I didn't want them to just see a list of required readings. I didn't want them to see just a list of handouts, perhaps videos that I wanted them to watch, although videos are very important. I wanted them to get a taste of infancy. I wanted them to get a sense of what it's like for both the parent and for the infant. And then there are various 2 or 3 minute videos. There's one particular place on the web that I like a great deal. It's called Science Direct, and what it is it has a number of different abstracts of recent studies, and these abstracts are 3 or 4 paragraphs. So what I do is I just had an area called Late Breaking News and put in those abstracts, or abstracts from Scientific American Mind, because they're very short and they have great information. So that they can go in and they can read some very, very brief information, 3 or 4 paragraphs that also gives them a touch of the research in the area and what we're getting, as opposed to just reading 4 papers. And so for going to a web page design, it was really exciting because it envisioned, or it paralleled much more so than Blackboard could, what we could do with what human development really is. So we really worked on the website up until the beginning of that semester, and of course at that point I had to turn my thoughts to teaching. Susanna and you worked on it through the semester, just finishing it up. I know that I still feel like there's a lot that I can do with it, and I don't feel like especially in the later weeks, I feel like there's so much content, so many pictures and things like that I want to bring in. If you think about again, a group of students who are primarily younger. How do I help them understand middle age and adulthood? Not from their view of parents who are middle-aged, but from the view of people who are middle-aged, or the view of elders. And especially for elders. Elders lived through World War II, the Depression, some of them. And so I want to put a great deal more information in there about this era, and some of the information, pictures about what life was like in the 1930s during the Great Depression, the black and white pictures, for example, so that they really get an idea of the changes between 1930 and today, so that they don't. And what was the music? What were the different themes? What were the generational ideas? So that they get a much better idea of it. And so I feel like I feel like it could probably work on this forever, because you could, just like any web page, you can put as great a depth into it as you want. Perhaps not as much breadth, because you run out of room on the web page, but as much depth. I mean, I can see them going further and further into this website, getting more and more information if they chose to explore it. I really don't feel like I had too many challenges. I really, once I got hooked up with ITC, it was fun from then on for me. Every time I met with the group of you, it was just so exciting, because I saw what my ideas coming to fruition. Some of the challenges for me was having the time to really pull the content that I needed. That's always going to be a challenge if someone wants to do something beyond just the actual content for the class, then that is obviously much more time intensive. And so finding the time to do that among the myriad other things that I was trying to do was a challenge. But from the perspective of working with ITC, it was just pure joy. I had a ball, and ITC was wonderful. It was, it turned out exactly like I wanted it, and there were parts of it that were better than I had envisioned, because of the artistic quality that I was not able to bring into it. What was really fun was being able to go to the website during the class. Because I'd already populated it with items that really show that age, then for me it was easy for me to just click on the website and to click on a particular 2-minute video and say, okay, now I want you to watch this, and watch this piece of it closely, because this is where I want you to see some of the dynamics. They were able to pull up my handouts for the course that actually had further embedded pictures and PowerPoints and things like that in it. So I could go in there and really not need any other real mechanisms for my teaching the class as well, unless I was bringing in a longer video or something just very specific. So that was very, very nice. As far as outside of class, students who explored it really liked it. They found it very, very beneficial. Interestingly, those students who had children found it to be extremely helpful. From all the students' perspective, they just really liked it. They liked the looks of it, they liked the feel of it. Regretfully, I didn't make it required, and because grad students are already overwhelmed, they didn't explore it as much as I wanted them to, so I will make it a required assignment, or that they will have to explore it each week this coming semester and integrate it into some of their other work. In other courses I've used Cintra to a limited extent. I have done an online lecture in Cintra for my students in a course in which there is a lot of online content, or content that they are required to access. And I also have group assignments that they are required to do, and along with group discussions. And so one of the ways that I've made Centra available to them is to allow them to go on into Centra and use Centra as the point where they have their group discussion. So even when I'm not using a fully online course. And so this really helps those students who, especially in our extended study courses, or in our part-time study courses, and many of these individuals work during the day and so are not on campuses, so have greater difficulty getting together with other students. Well, I've not taught a fully online course where I've taught a course where I have gone into Centra and lectured or every week, or had class discussions every week on online. But I have used it to a limited extent with classes online. And I like it a great deal. It seems to work fairly well. I have also developed a course that is more kind of a workbook approach where I've put lectures online for them to listen to, and all of the content is online. And there's a course that I teach, it's a 1-hour course that really lends itself to a workbook approach. And it works very well, except that it's very time consuming to do the lectures themselves. Not so much to do the lectures, those take very little more time than if you would do it in class. But then, because it is an online lecture, you want to have it of a more professional quality, and therefore trying to edit it requires more time. Finally, this year there's software, or I have found software available to do it easily, but even then it's very, very tedious and time consuming. So it's something that now that the course is set up, it's okay, but it's taken an enormous amount of time to get it set up. And it's not one of those courses where I'll tweak much because it is so time consuming. However, the way that I've done it, each PowerPoint slide is its own audio tape. And so if I wish to switch out a PowerPoint slide, I can just go and retape it. Or if I wish to change what I said, I can just go in and edit that very small 1 or 2 minute segment. So it would be easier now to edit it than I had, but it's one of those things that you want to give a great deal of thought to it before you go ahead and do this, because it's very, very tedious and time consuming. Rewarding in the end, but very time consuming. The other issue with something like that that I found is it's still very, very important to make yourself available to your students. And again, with Centra this year, that it's much easier to do that. I did use Captivate to record these lectures. Captivate is a really nice set of software now, and it's the one that allows you to, well, when I finally figured it all out, of course there's a learning curve, but I thought at first that I wouldn't be able to change my PowerPoint slides around, but actually I can. I can put my PowerPoint on, I can insert a slide, delete a slide, I can change my audio out, so I have actually fairly good control of it. It also has some really nice, interesting stuff. You can do assessments online. It can also do simulations, and especially in a computer technology course, or in this particular course that I teach, one of the things that I'm doing is trying to show them how to do a library search. So how to use PsycInfo, for example, and it's one of our more cantankerous search engines, and so it helps to see how that's done. And so regretfully, the learning curve won out this last year, but I'm very, very close to it. I have all sorts of next steps. My challenge is always, well, I have two challenges. One is to stay as organized in my class as I feel in my head, or to make my students think I'm as organized in my class as I am in my head. And I found some software called Mind Manager that really helps do that. And it helps me to point them back to where I am, even though, and this is especially true when I teach human development, because it's a very complex, interactive type of dynamic type of development. And so it helps to reorient them back to where I am all the time. And so I want to start making more use of Mind Manager and even integrating it further into some of the other technology that I'm using. I also have some kind of interesting ideas about what to do with how to go even further forward in my human behavior lifespan development course, in the neurophysiology course, and to make it even more realistic. How do we imitate life? How do I make it most like life for them so that they can understand how different circumstances affect development? And so I have some ideas about that, using various techniques, using perhaps game type of technology. So I don't know what ITC is going to think about all this, but I have some ideas. Right now what I really want to do with this course is I just want to kind of get the web page settled now. But it's exciting because it brings more and more technology and more sophistication to the students. Heavens, you know, they're so sophisticated with the computer now. I feel like I'm just running as fast as I can to catch up with them, and their expectation for, you know, for what they see on the web and for what they can do on the web and how they can engage in understanding information is so much more sophisticated than where I am and where we are really with our coursework in general, I think, right now. So I think we have a long way to go, and it's fun chasing that.